Hello everyone. Yeah, you read the title card right, the title of the video right. We are covering FatSapphicBro this week. But there's a couple of housekeeping things that I want to cover before we get into the video. One, I apologize if I sound sniffly. I got a cold this week because a 6-year-old coughed in my face. It's fun of working with kids. So I apologize for that. I'm feeling much better though. This is like day 4 and I pretty much hit turnaround. I have to go back to work tomorrow, so I'm kind of taking it pretty easy. Second thing is that this will be the last time that I cover FatSapphicBro until summer, which for me will be like mid-June to early July-ish when I start covering them again. And mostly the reason for this is I have, like, my school work is like 10 assignments a week right now, plus I work part-time, plus I'm trying to take on more sub jobs to get more experience and that sort of thing. So this whole thing going on with FatSapphicBro has been a rather big distraction for me, especially because every time they respond, I get an email and then I find myself pulled to look because I'm curious, and that's what happens. So I'm going to take a step back for the time being just so I can concentrate on what I need to concentrate on. And then when I have fewer things going on, we'll come back to this. So with those out of the way, what we're going to focus on in this video is responding to the 4 videos that they made of me, as well as something that went on between them and a follower of theirs who then came on to my channel to talk. That one's going to be brief because I don't really know the full background of it. I have some hints from what they've said, but I'm choosing to be fairly careful about how I cover that because that person, when they made their comment on my video, seemed to be in an emotionally vulnerable spot. So I want to be kind of careful with how I handle it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this. So this is the first video that they made on me, saying if this person is following you, it's likely they're making content about you. I'd suggest you block them and report their videos on YouTube. And basically all they did was go through all of the people, so first they show my channel, and then I believe, they went through all of my followers, all 91 of my followers, to kind of show people. They proceeded to at everyone, tag everyone. Then there was a string of comments, people thanking them, people saying that they blocked me, blah, 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 blah. Not a big deal. I found it interesting that they tagged Miracle Megs, GG Peach, Sparkle Jams, and Splotchmaker, and Barbla, because I wrapped up my series on all of those people, and I haven't covered them since. And then people surprised that I actually make those videos. But there were 2 things in particular. One person said, oh my god, they have a 7-part series on you, that amount to hours. Do people not have hobbies? And I thought this was an interesting take of just how many parts I had. Honestly, I never really considered the number of parts that I had, because for me this is a matter of time. I limited myself to a year based on when I started their series. For some people, it ended up being a little more than a year, so it skews between like a year and a half in the TikTok, depending on how long it takes me to get through their videos. But I never really considered the number of parts, because for me, I just kind of limited it to a time frame. And that gave me pause, and that made me think for a bit, but ultimately I came down to, I like my time frame better. I look within a certain time frame of someone to keep current with their current opinions, and by looking at a year, looking at this chunk of time, we can see how their opinions have evolved or changed, or how they handle criticism for those opinions, and there's just a variety of things that go into looking at a time frame of a person. I thought that was, it was an interesting perspective. Ultimately, I've decided that I'm happy with what I'm covering, but it gave me pause for a moment. But the thing that I thought was interesting was this person that said, I wonder if one of the 2 of the followers is the same person. FatSapphicBro responds with, I'm so done being nice. And I'm going to block out the users' names. They put the usernames of the people that are following me. And the reason why this, and for anyone who's wondering why I went through these comments, it's because it's my toxic trait. Okay, someone's talking about me, I'm curious what everyone's saying. Like, I'm not gonna hide that. Like, I can't help but wonder. I'm curious. So I was looking, plus, this was, like, the day all of this was going down, and yeah, I got pretty swept up in this. The thing that I found interesting was that I don't remember ever showing you guys what my username was before all of this happened. Just because there was no point on TikTok. There was no point in me sharing my username because I don't put anything out there. The account was mostly used as a keeper for all the different people that I wanted to cover, and then a couple of people that I found that I liked over time. So for me, this was not so people following me, they followed me, I had to look back at it, but they followed me in August of last year. Now, August of last year, I was going on this whole binge of finding new hobbies and stuff to try out. And I went through the TikTok hobby tag, and I think that they followed me sometime during that point. Maybe I liked one of their videos, or maybe I commented on one of their videos, I don't remember. Because there was a lot of interesting stuff that I found while going through that tag. I don't know if these people have any idea of what I cover on YouTube. No fucking, like, these people haven't posted since, like, September of last year. They haven't been posting, they haven't been regular content creators. They do nothing. I don't even know if they know anything that's going on with this YouTube account. And yet, FatSapphicBro felt the need to blast their names out there. These are people that have nothing to do with our disagreement. These people probably don't even know anything that has to do with the fat acceptance movement. The only thing I can think of is that they looked and that they saw that they were skinny women and felt vindicated because of that alone. That's the only thing I can think of, because they have no content related to fat acceptance of any kind. Whether it be for fat acceptance or anti-fat acceptance, no content of that of any kind. And I just thought it was telling of their character that they felt the need to blast people that quite potentially have absolutely nothing to do with any of this. So following that, they made this video on me on their YouTube.
So this is a person that is actively stalking me and a lot of other fat liberation content creators on TikTok. They're going through all of our pages and making a full year through every single post we've ever posted.
This is a misrepresentation of what I do. I do go through a year's worth of their posts. I do not show every single post. That is not true. I show stuff that I find relevant to comment on. There are a variety of get ready with me's. There's a variety of outfit of the days. There's a variety of try-on hauls. For FatSapphicBro, there was so many days on tea. There was some stuff related to like medical appointments that I didn't cover because they weren't relevant to the matter at hand. There was some COVID stuff that I didn't cover. I don't cover every single video. I cover stuff that I think is relevant to the conversation or that piqued my interest. That does not equate to every single post. And a lot of the like sound posts where it's just a sound that they overlay, even if it's fat acceptance related, I don't necessarily cover it because it's just a trend thing. Like, there isn't a whole lot there to cover. So that's a bit of a misrepresentation of what I do.
They are highlighting every video we have posted on our TikToks for the whole year.
Again, misrepresentation, not every video.
And when we block this person, they then consider making other accounts to continue to make content about us.
I did consider it. Yes. I considered it. I'm not gonna deny that I considered it. Ultimately decide against it, but I considered it.
They claim to be critiquing the fat liberation movement, but they make content about all of our videos, not just the videos where we're talking about fat liberation, but
So it's true, my coverage does not only cover fat liberation, it covers some other things as well. Some things that I find tangentially related, some things that I think are relevant to discussions about the person, and some things that just like I said, piqued my interest.
The videos where we're just talking about our day, or for instance, a video where I was doing my hair, which they then proceeded to call me lazy because I happened to tag it as a day in the life.
So, this is wrong. I never called them lazy. I posted it it was a 10-minute video last week, if you want to check it out. I did not call them lazy. I said that by posting this stuff and tagging it as a day in the life as though it is what they do in an average day does lend to people who think they are lazy. It was a matter of commenting on the optics of the situation, not the person themselves. But they very well may say that's a distinction without a difference, and they're entitled to say that. I think the distinction does make a difference, but that's me, and that's a matter of a difference of perspective.
For organizational purposes, and they were like, oh, this is all you do all day. It's terrible. They also refused to actually respond to any of our direct comments.
I refuse to respond to any of your direct comments because you made blanket accusations without any specifics, and you just resort to name calling. I'm not engaging in tantrum behavior.
So instead of speaking to us directly, they just want to make content about us anonymously. So, protect yourselves from this person and other people like this. This is not the only person who does this. There are a lot of them, but this is just one of them.
And that's pretty much the end of that video. So then they made this video saying, they keep saying they're not going to stop. They screenshot something I was responding to someone else, and their response to it. Some people have had a lot of issues with this. Again, I will stop covering them if they private their channel. As far as I'm concerned, like I said before, this is a matter of public space, public internet space. If you want to private it and make it a private space, you are more than welcome to. And then this was the final one about me, and the reason why I'm covering these is because the narrative has changed subtly as we go through. And I just feel like it's worth stating.
Pause to read, but it looks like this person is going to continue to stalk my profile, despite being blocked, despite being asked countless times to stop.
So let's clarify something real quick. They have not once asked me. They have demanded. There is a difference, and the reason why I feel the need to make this distinction is because I've dealt with a lot of manipulative people in my life, and this sort of linguistic circus trick is something that I've experienced quite a bit, and I know how to identify it very well. You have not asked. You have demanded. There is a difference there. And the difference, while it may not functionally make a difference, optically it makes a big difference. Because what you're doing is you're saying that you've asked, meaning that it's a more meek word. It involves a question, it involves a request, in which you're saying that I have outright denied, and it puts you in more of a victim role because you've asked and I've rejected, rather than you have demanded and I ignored, which is what's actually happening. To ask requires a question. To demand is to try to exert control over another person, which is what you've done. And by painting it as you've asked and I've ignored it and rejected it, you're putting yourself in a meek, they won't stop, versus a big bad hidden channel saying fuck you. Like it's versus you've demanded and you've thrown tantrums in my comments, making blanket accusations and name calling, which I've chosen to ignore, which I think could very well put us both in a bad light, which I'm fine with. But let's not pretend that you have meekly asked me and I just rejected it. You have demanded and I've ignored it.
Archiving my entire TikTok account onto your fucking...
So, notice the change in narrative here. Archiving their entire TikTok account, which we know is not true. I did not start covering them until... I forgot what the exact date was. It was a year before the date that I started recording. Because it's a year in the TikTok. It's meant to be a year in the TikTok. And archiving is an interesting word as well, because it insinuates that I am simply recording that without commentary, which is not what I'm doing, and posting it. It gives more of a lend to their perception of copyright rather than what it is, which is an engagement with their content and a counter argument, which is what I've been doing. I'm not archiving your TikTok. I'm not archiving your entire account. I am responding to specific TikToks within the span of a year, maybe like a year-ish, maybe a little bit more, responding in kind. That is what I'm doing.
YouTube page. But apparently, she is too obsessed and refuses to stop. I really think this person needs help with from a therapist. Like, this is stalker behavior.
I disagree that this is stalker behavior. This is a public account that you have put up. I'm covering a year-ish, year to year and a half of your TikToks. And once I finish that year, once I finish from when I started up to the current date, I stop. I no longer cover you and I move on. Did that with Watchmaker, did that with Gigi Peach, did that with Miracle Megs, did that with Barbara. Just saying. Number one. Number two, I don't follow you on any other social media. I think I looked at your Twitter once. That was last year when I was trying to confirm what your pronouns were. And then, yes, I've looked at this YouTube, but I didn't even know you had a YouTube until you started commenting on my page. Stalking requires a level of tracking your movements online, and I don't track your movements online. I look at one social media and simply go through public videos that you have put out that are on controversial topics. That is what I do.
Her entire account is just keeping records of videos from fat acceptance and fat liberation TikTokers.
Again, complete misrepresentation of what I do. I don't keep records. I respond to TikToks that I find relevant or that pique my interest.
It is absolutely fucking bonkers. So she's basically going to bypass my block anyway in order to screen record and make content
For the record, I've always screen recorded the content, just so we're clear.
About my videos. Even though, you know, she doesn't have diabetes and isn't a health professional, but sure seems to act like she is.
I don't act like I'm a health professional. I cite everything that I say, and either before I start talking or while I'm talking, I make sure to say I am not a medical health professional. And honestly, you saying I'm not a medical health professional is kind of pot meat kettle. Just a little bit. At least I cite what I say. Number one. Number two, I may not have diabetes, but literally everyone down my maternal line has had diabetes. And I've been made very aware of certain things since I was a kid. Not that you need to know this information, but if you're going to put information out there that I know from experience and then can back up with citation of evidence from reputable sources, I am fully within my rights to comment on it. So that's the end of that. The final thing that we're going to comment on, I was going back and forth about whether I wanted to comment on this or not. This was based on a boundaries thing, and I want to be clear, before I didn't even see this, I didn't even bother with this video until the person that was involved with this posted a comment on my most recent video. And YouTube had flagged it for potentially inappropriate content, and I was looking at it, and the thing is that it just cut off. It says, this is going to be long-winded, and then they proceed with, let me start off by saying, I think that you're disgusting and hateful and a stupid little girl. And I almost just, ignored it and let it sit in limbo. But I decided that I wanted to know, since they said they were going to be long-winded, I wanted to know everything that they had to say. And I decided that I wasn't going to, remove the comment unless they made a death threat, a rape threat, or a doxing threat on me, or if they used slurs. And while they called me a number of names, there was also some really interesting information that they provided. I think that this person posted that comment in a very emotionally vulnerable space, so I'm not necessarily going to go over all of it because I would like them to be able to delete their comment without it being immortalized on my YouTube, because I do firmly believe that they posted that comment when they were emotionally vulnerable and having an emotional reaction to something that only tangentially applied to me. This person, the one bit of relevant information that I got from their comment was that they were a former friend of FatSapphicBro. According to them, they had spent hours of time comforting FatSapphicBro while FatSapphicBro was trying to figure out which account was mine on their page. How true is that? I honest to God don't know. I don't know the validity of that statement. They then had this argument when the person was doing some intentional weight loss, and FatSapphicBro blocked them because they have the boundary about, not having intentional weight loss on their page at all. And this person felt betrayed by that. The person was upset by that and thought the boundary was stupid and said as much, and they kind of said that on my page too. This is so not my fight, so I don't want to comment too much on it. But I found it interesting that they posted not only this one, but there's a follow-up one that I'm going to pause at a strategic moment, so that way it shares less of their comment on my page. But the caption for this one says, "If you think my stated boundaries are stupid, then you don't belong here. You are not my ally, and you don't understand consent. And regardless of what you think of said boundary, that doesn't mean I should be harassed." And this person was reacting very hurt. What I got from this person's reaction was they felt betrayed by a person that they thought was a friend over a personal choice. Make of that what you will. This person ultimately seemed, I think, is not prepared for the internet and how people can be, and I think maybe got a little overinvested in a parasocial relationship that ended up like this. And all right, so this is part of what I responded to them, which is why I've paused it here. Someone had commented on the last post saying, "Eek, but I helped you, so I get to violate your boundary. The manipulation, holy moly." And FatSapphicBro responds with this caption, "You're totally right. After that interaction, this happened, literally saying that because they don't like my clearly stated boundary, I deserve to be stalked." They did say on the comment, like, "Go ahead and stalk FatSapphicBro, I don't fucking care." And, like, they were just having a very emotional reaction to what I think was a feeling of betrayal by a person that they saw as a friend. What I've paused on is part of my response. But FatSapphicBro had screen recorded their entire comment as well as my entire response. And ultimately, I think, and in this, they said, replying to a person with, and then there's some hashtags, "It's literally in a pinned video and my bio, like, get a grip. Too many people out here not seeking therapy when they really, really need to." And I think that this is kind of a cold, if the person did comfort you during this, I'm not saying that you have to set aside your boundary, but maybe a little bit of compassion would be worth, if they comforted you and they showed you kindness. Maybe just show, rather than being so dismissive and saying, like, you really need therapy, maybe just showing a little bit of compassion and acknowledgement of, like, I understand that you feel betrayed, but this is my boundary, this is what I have to set, and it's just best for us to go our separate ways. I'm sorry that you're hurt, but this is still firm for me. Like, there's a way to enforce the boundary without being cruel. And I think that this person felt like they had supported you and were kind to you, and you have kind of shown them a callous nature in return. And I wouldn't be commenting on this if they hadn't come on my page and then FatSapphicBro had recorded my page, but now I kind of feel like I was inserted into this whole thing. And so I gave my 2 cents on it, and we're stopping there. One last thing I want to comment on, going back to their third, I think, video they made on me with that screenshot. One last thing I want to comment on. This person said it would be unfortunate if someone stalked them back to report all of their abilities to Social Security. FatSapphicBro responded, "What, this isn't a disabled person, and that's a weird threat." And I'm glad that they responded in this, because it is a weird threat. And I find it interesting that they don't make the distinction between a person that decides to go on a public TikTok page versus tracking someone down in real life. I've never made any attempt to find out where FatSapphicBro lives. I've never made any attempt to know any more about their personal life than anything that's been put on TikTok. And even stuff about their personal life I have purposely left out. Because I'm like, that's a little, even though it's on the public account, me commenting on it just feels a little weird. And so I don't do it. But this is why I remain anonymous. And this is why I've conducted myself in the way that I have. I started this channel knowing that I would probably step on some toes. I started this channel expecting dissenters, and I knew that some people would take it to the extreme and look to dox or in real life stalk me over stuff like this. That is why I have been careful about what I release and keep things purposefully vague. It is not a matter of trying to hide my opinions under a cloak of anonymity. It is a matter of using the anonymity as a way to protect myself. So just so we're clear. Now let's move on to starting where we left off on our last in a year of the TikTok of FatSapphicBro, and then we're going to end it. And as I said before, I'm not starting this again until summer starts. Okay, so TikTok is not pausing for me when I'm on like the regular page, so we now have this set up. But let's go ahead and listen to what they have to say on, let's see, I think this is on, My 600-Pound Life.
This person asks, what are your thoughts on shows like My 600-Pound Life and The 1,000-Pound Sisters? TLC profits hella on these shows too. And then they also mentioned Biggest Loser in another comment, and we've kind of been talking back and forth a little bit about all of this. So let's chat about it. I think as a whole, TLC is like modern freak show. I think that they manipulate and take advantage of a lot of various types of marginalized people who are struggling with a variety of things, and instead of offering real actual help, they turn it into a sideshow and profit off of people's illnesses. And I think it's actually quite deplorable. I don't support most TLC shows. I used to like them a lot when I was younger. I can't see them the same anymore. As for Biggest Loser, I was definitely someone who loved the show, loved the coaches, thought that one day I could go on the show, would do the at-home Biggest Loser challenges. And now I see it for what it is. It's an eating disorder. They force people into severe calorie restriction to the point that they are literally starving, and force them to work out to the point that they become physically ill, oftentimes having to be physically sick. I'm emetophobic, so I don't like to talk about the V word, but anyway. And so there's nothing about it that is healthy or mentally sound or physically sound. And I absolutely despise that these shows exist, that any show like this exists. And often even shows that are not necessarily directly related to this. So something like American Ninja Warrior, they love to tout the people who have had extreme weight loss. And it's very gross. Extreme weight loss is incredibly unhealthy for you, no matter what size you are. Rapidly losing weight that fast is akin to having anorexia, and it can cause you to have a heart attack. And it's why so many people from shows like My 600-Pound Life end up dying after getting weight loss surgery, because not only are the surgeries severely dangerous, but the lack of ability to consume enough food, you end up malnourished and you lose weight too fast, and you end up with an unhealthy heart, and more unhealthy than you were when you were fat. They could have just worked on health outcomes instead of forcing weight loss. I could say a whole lot more, but my time's up.
So I didn't mean to let that whole thing run, but there was a lot going on there that I kind of wanted to hear. For Biggest Loser, I'm not going to comment on that one because I stopped watching after I think the second season, way back when I was a teenager. So I don't even remember much about Biggest Loser. I remember the controversies that came afterward about how they treated some of the contestants. I'm not commenting on that one. The My 600-Pound Life and TLC shows being a bit sideshow freak thing. I actually understand that argument. There's actually some other videos that better explain the thought process behind this. I'm curious about your guys' opinions on that more than anything else. Do you think that it is exploitative in nature, or do you think it is a give and get sort of situation? I'm genuinely curious of your opinions on this. On the thing about My 600-Pound Life people dying, the people that I've seen dying are the ones that didn't follow the advice of the doctors in the first place. Like that's primarily the people that I saw not like having those level of complications are primarily the ones that didn't follow the aftercare advice. And the thing about heart attacks and you blaming the surgery, their hearts were likely weakened from their weight to begin with. There is a balancing act that's taken here when they're given this sort of extreme surgery, and I'll admit it is extreme. There's a balancing act here of risks versus benefits, and I think that the doctors, by and large, do the, as I've said time and time again, I think the doctors do the best that they can with the information that they have at the time, the information and technology that they have at the time.
This person says, WTF, that's fucking insane. How the fuck do people even eat meals with a stomach the size of a golf ball? That's fucked. Yeah, that's the thing, they don't. They don't actually eat full meals. It's why.
So, the golf ball size stomach for gastric bypass is actually roughly accurate. The full meals thing, they eat smaller meals, but there are plenty of people that end up eating the smaller meals several times throughout the day. I think the general idea is that they can hold about 2 fluid ounces worth in their stomach at a time. Once that digests, they can then eat more. There's ways to get the nutrition in, and then there are supplements that they're often given. It's not, I don't like the perspective that they're given the surgery and then hands off, nothing, the doctors just leave them to rot. That's not what happens. They're given a care plan for afterwards, and we've seen time and time again, at least on my 600-pound life, that many of them do not follow it.
After these surgeries, you have to be on very, very strict diets and can barely eat anything because you risk rupturing your stomach because of the size of it.
I think rupturing the stomach is, that is a possible complication, but I think that the specific diets are also for a variety of other complications as well. Like there are other complications. I think rupturing the stomach doesn't happen as often as some of the other complications. Let's see. How often do stomachs rupture after gastric bypass? Low pressure system thus induces leak ranges of about 0.6% to 4.4% of patients. Because the low pressure operative and non-operative management strategies to control the leak do not close or repair perforation are effective in 72% of patients. And this is from PMJ, which is, I think it's Bariatric Medical Journal. Let's see, this study is from, when is this study from? So we have authors, it's from 2018. So we have access to the full thing. We're going to just read the abstract and maybe go down to the, maybe the conclusion, like we'll keep this pretty short. Weight loss surgery is one of the fastest growing segments of surgical discipline. As with all medical procedures, postoperative complications will occur. Acute care surgeons need to be familiar with common problems and their management. Although general surgical principles generally apply, diagnoses specific to the various bariatric operations must be considered. There are anatomic considerations which alter management priorities and options for those patients in many instances. These problems present both early and late in the postoperative course. Bariatric operations in many instances result in a permanent alteration of a patient's anatomy, which can lead to complications at any time during the course of the patient's life. Acute care surgeons diagnosing surgical emergencies in post-bariatric operation patients must be familiar with the type of surgery performed, as well as the common post-bariatric surgical emergencies. In addition, surgeons must not overlook common causes of an acute surgical abdomen, acute appendicitis, acute diverticulitis, acute pancreatitis, and gallstone disease. For all of these are still among the most common etiologies of abdominal pathology in these patients. So this seems to be more on repairing issues. So we're just going to take a look. So like internal hernia, small bowel obstruction, bleeding, perforation. Okay, so for gastric bypass, as we saw on Google, incidence of leaks range from 0.6 to 4.4 of patients. And then if treated, it's effective for 72% of patients. And then for sleeve, because a gastric sleeve is becoming, I think, more prevalent, the incidence is 1% to 7%. And apparently they're more difficult to treat. And then perforation is specifically related to gastric bypass. Patients may present with spontaneous perforations, which is 1 to 2% of patients. Some may have no warning symptoms, although detailed history may reveal antecedent symptoms, pain, or an increased use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So for leaks, it's 0.6 to 4.4%, and then for perforations, it's 1 to 2%. And then for gastric sleeve, leaks are 1 to 7%. So that's what we have.
That's kind of the point. It's quite literally a starvation tactic for weight loss, which is like the most ridiculous way to tackle the problem at hand. Taking the stomach down from its 12 by 6 inches to the size of a golf ball is so horrific to me. And you'll find that a lot of people get sick after eating literally one M&M or what have you. It's pretty bad. It's definitely tantamount to torture in my opinion, and I hate that this is something that we do.
So that people get sick after eating one M&M. I would like a little citation on that, or some reference to someone that actually said that, because that seems a little hyperbolic to me. For the, like, it's starvation, you can make that argument. I disagree. It's a weight loss tool because these people's weight is an imminent danger to their health. But I think that this is basically two ways of looking at the same issue.
This commenter says, I listen to Junior Reader Fantasy to sleep at night, and the fat phobia being fed to kids is disgusting. Oh my fucking god, yes. Let's talk about this because it fucking irritates the shit out of me. This is something that has bothered me for a long time. In almost every children's book, there's this host of fat people that are villains, or fat people that are bullies, or fat people that are just stinky and gross. And fatness is used as, it's demonized basically. So you see a lot of fat villains like Kingpin in Spider-Man. Or you see, think about like Harry Potter and the Dursleys.
So actually, I want to say something about the Dursleys. I don't think the Dursleys' fatness was meant to be a representation of their villainy. I think that the Dursleys' fatness was meant to contrast Harry's skinniness and was meant to show how he's treated. And if you want to wrap that up in their fatness, I mean, I guess you can, but I think it's also worth noting that Dudley in Deathly Hallows actually shows kindness to Harry. He shows that he's breaking away from his family's toxicity. He prepares Harry tea. He tells Harry, I never thought you were a waste of space. As spoiled and as rotten as Dudley was in the early books, it seems like he matured, like, off screen and tried to, I don't know if mend bridges is correct, but he did show growth. And so for that reason, like, I don't think that their weight was meant to, and I don't think Petunia was even that fat. It was Vernon and Dudley that were fat. I think Petunia was always, like, fairly skinny, wasn't she? And she was one of the nastiest. And so I don't think that the Dursleys' weight was meant, I think it was meant to more showcase their neglect of Harry, to show that they took as much excess as they could while denying Harry basics. Like, I think it was meant to, as evidence of their cruelty, not necessarily as a moral failing on its own right. As for the mentioning of Kingpin in Spider-Man, like, we also, though, have Green Goblin, and as far as I know, Dr. Octopus was, like, fairly normal weight. So, like, there are fat villains, but they're often, like, I mean, you can say, oh, well, look at, Ursula in the Disney movies. I'm like, okay, but also look at Maleficent and Captain Hook. Villain, let's see, we have Maleficent, Captain Hook. Scar was pretty thin. I'm not brushed up on my Disney villainry. Oh, Claude Frollo, normal weight man. Like, there were plenty. Jafar was thin. Like, there are fat villains, but they're often mixed in. Cruella de Vil, thin, are mixed in with plenty of skinny villains. It's just a matter of giving variety. When you have a lot of villains in the same universe, creating variety in how they look is a way to keep readers from getting bored.
I think I haven't watched it for fucking ever. And God, I mean, I feel like the examples are endless. So many shows and cartoons and movies and books and everything just has fat characters in it. Excuse me. Fat characters in it, but the fat characters are always something bad. They're slovenly, they're lazy, they're outright villains, they're bullies, they're mean, they constantly eat. And this is every time there's a fat person, especially in children's media, it is meant to be the butt of a joke. It is meant to be the food obsessed one. It is meant to be the lazy one or the sloppy one or the outright villain. And it's a problem. And I think that's why fat phobia is so insidious. I think it starts so young. I mean, like many things do, right? Like sexism starts super young too, but I think fat phobia is one that is just so widely accepted, and then it goes into adult media, just continues a lot of those tropes, and so it's a problem, and I really 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 hate it.
So, I think this is a little bit of confirmation bias on FatSapphicBro's part. I've already explained the villain thing. But for other characters, I don't think that this is as common anymore as maybe it was in the 90s and stuff. Because, like, I work with kids, so I see a lot of children's media, and fat characters are, like, put out there in more positive lights now. Like, it's not, like, it's meant as part of, like, the diversity thing. Their weight is not centered, and as far as I know, there isn't, like, fat acceptance rhetoric in these books. It's literally just a character that's a bit overweight as representation for the chubby kids. Like, it's not, I think maybe this is just the media that you're engaging with, and especially if it's a bit older, then that was kind of something where the fat character was always the butt of a joke early on. I don't think it's as much of a thing anymore. I think this is a little bit of confirmation bias on your part. So I originally had two more, but I feel kind of like I'm reaching my limit, so I'm going to end it here. As I said before, we are not covering Fat Sapphic Bro again until the summer when I have more time and this whole thing doesn't risk affecting my everyday life. I'm leaving it here. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time, and take care of yourselves.